There's a rumour, I think a fairly well-founded one, that when Tom Watson lent his name to a letter calling upon Tony Blair to leave Downing Street, his card was marked by Rebecca Brooks, and that possibly the enmity can be traced back to there. I don't know. We'll have to wait for the memoirs. Nigel is in Guildford. Nigel, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James.
Hello.
Well, I've got a bit of a vested interest in this because I've worked as a private investigator for the last 15 years for a company called Answers Investigation.
Okay.
I've heard everything that's been going on all last week. A lot of LBC listening. You put it so well, you've got to put the flattery into it. I've not heard anybody from our industry come on to the radio and talk publicly, and I just thought I'd give you a call and see if you might be interested in our take on it.
I will be interested in it. The reason why I haven't spoken to any of the faces involved in the story is because they either face or would face criminal charges. So I presume you're about to tell me that you've never done any of the things that the private investigators mentioned in the reports have done.
Okay, let's start from that base. No, we haven't. And do you know why? Because we haven't needed to.
Go on.
It's hard. It's a harder path not to. Having said that, you've got to look at our industry. Now, we work in an industry which still is unlicensed. John Major's government was trying to put licensing through 20 years ago. There's a faction, a very deplorable faction within our industry who absolutely thrive on it. And, like in common with so many other industries, we fight from the other side saying, hang on a minute, we're legal, we're ethical, we try harder. I mean, we're struggling in recession, the same as everybody else does. And yet there's this easy path. The thing that I haven't heard in the last week or so is there's a big furore about every celebrity, about every politician having their phones hacked, having mobile phone bills put out. But the other thing is how rife it is with members of the public. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world, or I think it was the easiest thing in the world, for somebody just to go and get hold of your phone records, get hold of your wife's phone records, cut into your wife's phone, just by paying some money in bribery.
To an employee of the phone company.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. and of course you could, if I wanted evidence of Jones the engineer cheating on me behind my back, you could presumably hack into his voicemail messages quite easily if he hasn't changed his default PIN number.
Anything that is technically built can be technically unravelled. I mean, again, as an example, we get involved in legal computer forensics.
Okay.
You can go and take your hard drive and go and trash it and drive over it. It can still be rebuilt, and the phone is the same sort of principle. Something down on record, that can be done on the same price. Medical records, P&C records, and so forth.
Is this why perhaps the police didn't get as excited as yesterday everybody was suggesting they should have been? Because it is to somebody like you, and therefore presumably to someone like them, not shocking.
Yeah. It seems to be one of those things which was just pushed under the carpet a little bit.
And what has changed is not the what, but the who. So people were not shocked by what was going on. They became shocked when they found out who it had happened to. The tipping point for that was Millie Dowler. It was the big customer thing. It was Millie Dowler. I mean, the latest revelations of Gordon Brown's child, which is, although the Sun have made a strong case this morning that had nothing to do with hacking. I personally suspect they bought the information, which is morally just as dubious, but it was the who rather than the what. So the practice is widespread. It's been going on for years. Nobody's ever really batted an eyelid at it. That's why the police didn't go crazy when they were originally charged with the investigation. But when the full extent of who it had happened to started to emerge, then the moral compass went haywire, and people began to want answers and indeed heads to roll. You have summed that up so very, very well indeed. I mean, it's just been there for years. The Information Commissioner would have the occasional tap at somebody, and somebody would maybe get a 6-month sentence. Well, we didn't even care, did we? When Glenn Mulcair and Clive Goodman got sent to prison, it was not outside the industry.
Bit of a non-story. I mean, we were actually surprised that it happened.
Because it was only royal aides they were hacking, and my goodness me, we've listened into Prince Charles's private conversations with his mistress while he was still married. So where's the shock in the fact that people were trying to hack into their mobile phone messages?
I just caught the other day that the complete shock at seeing the police officer being asked whether he had ever received money for anything. And I remember sitting in the car, so I remember sort of thinking, well, actually, that's not an unreasonable question, because while I wouldn't throw the allegation up for fear of being sued by somebody, I think there are an awful lot of police officers out there who in the past have access to PNC to go and get information about criminal records.
Some have been caught, but almost certainly some haven't. And of course, Rebecca Brooks sat in front of the same committee and told them that she was aware of police officers receiving money from journalists. I'm glad you called, Nigel. I'm glad we finally heard from a representative of your industry, albeit a little late, because you're probably right. It is, I know, a little bit early to suggest that we should all calm down because the fury remains and the B-Sky-B takeover is still very much on the agenda. But the question of why we didn't care sooner is fairly simply answered. Because we don't care about what happened to these people. We only started to care when the who changed. When Sienna Miller was replaced by a murdered schoolgirl. That is it. It's a sense of decency about who deserves and who doesn't deserve to be violated thus. And that's, I think, why many people, myself included, are a little bit uncomfortable with some of the actors and comedians and other public figures leading the line on this one. Brilliantly articulate, though Hugh Grant has been, and profoundly persuasive, I don't trust a man who has done things that he has done in the past, and I don't want a man like that, who can cheat on his own partner in the most sordid and sleazy of circumstances, to be setting any sort of moral agenda for the nation. So it is possibly the reason why the thoughts and the opinions of the Dowler family should be taken into account way ahead of anything that comedians or thespians have to say. Jay's in Chislehurst. Jay, what would you like to say?